So we kind of went over these 50 ways, but let's see some examples. So um, some things you want to ask yourself is like, what do you do when you want to cover like what the community thinks, or you want to include lots of different quotes from different people, or your story is resolving around a lot of data and numbers, or just learning the plain facts of something is very, very interesting. You could do the 5 Ws, you could do by the numbers, fact box, favorites list, poll, or stats. So examples of this would be just breaking it down instead of in a story format of the who, what, when, where, and why, or how, just actually answering the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So you can see here a story about a senior who experienced a change in her beach volleyball career by competing in an international competition. And they just gave basic information of who, when, what, why, and how. So that's a quick 5 Ws. Maybe you do an advice column where you're asking them, like, what advice would you give to become a faster runner? And then they give those advice pieces to you. Maybe you're doing an autobiography, right? Where you're actually asking them to help you write that story. And this one's about the challenges and opportunities she's experienced as a dancer. You do it before, during, and after. So this is what's happening before the robotics competition, what happens during it, and then what happens after. Same thing here with AP biology students using Play-Doh as a model in their lab to further understand what they're learning. And so you can see what it looks like before, during, and after, and how the students felt before the project and after it. This is behind the blanks. So here's a behind the scenes of people who are on the drama club, and they're the part of the backstage, like they're behind there. They are part of the stagecraft crew, and it says they share that their inside jokes behind their funny nicknames for each other because they have stage names. This is a breakdown where you're taking a shot of somebody who's ready to tumble and go into, a cheerleading, and what it's like what do you need to be a cheerleader? What do you need to be aware of, and really grabbing quotes from that person. So when you are asking yourself, like, the story's about a bunch of different things, or you want to take a closer look at the details, or the story has an untold insider angle. So this is really great when we don't know the details, but other people do. You can do behind the scenes, or behind the coach, or behind the star player, and a breakdown as well. So another example is by the numbers, where you're really trying to take something and break it down by numbers. I always like to think of the song 525,600 minutes. That's how many minutes are in a year. And so, like, what are you going to do with all those minutes? And you start with like big numbers, or usually, like, a lot of the time the numbers ones, they start with big numbers and they get smaller and smaller, like 35 players, 2 coaches, 1 team. Like, that's just a really basic example of a by numbers. But this one you can see is making the minutes count. And so it's like the average number of tickets sold for the homecoming football game, 2 principals guarding the parking lot during lunch, 493 steps from Africa back parking lot to the school, 32.2 total inches of rain from August to December. So this is their intro to their whole book. They're giving some data. Here's another example of minutes. For varsity volleyball's stunning stats, by the numbers. And so you've got their stats, but you're showing it in a new way. You've also got the calendar. So you can go ahead and take something and draw it in by calendar. So like August, September, October, November, and make it so that certain things happened in the calendar format, but you're not showing it like a calendar. When we say charts, it's almost like tabling something, like putting something in a table format, but not in just a table. You want to make it very, very readable and very interesting to draw the person in. So you can see lots of different examples here. And then another question you might be asking yourself is like, what do you want to do when you want to show multiple perspectives, or you want to compare multiple things? So this is great for compare and contrast, pros and cons, top 10, who knows best, multiple perspectives, all those kinds of things. So this one is a compare and contrast, where you're talking about different competitions that people do and what they're competing in. So you've got fencing, you've got crossbow, you've got singing, lots of different things. Here you're comparing students who have asked other people to prom. Here's a do's and don'ts where it's like do this or don't do this. And we've done this before with like the do's and don'ts of COVID social distancing, and whether or not students actually followed those. A fact box is where you're really taking out all these people from a photo and you're really stating the stats about them, so you can see the facts over here on the right about those individuals, their personal records, the years they've spent running, and their place at regionals. Maybe do something like a favorites where you're breaking down what are the favorites that somebody has. These are some really common shots that we're seeing these days. Maybe you're doing a fill in the blank, and you're doing it where it's like my favorite hobby is, songs I played on repeat, what makes me smile, where I traveled. Those are fill in the blank options. Or you can start a sentence like my favorite memory from this school year is, or my favorite part of the school day is, or my greatest accomplishment this year is. So you can do those kinds of fill in the blanks. And this one is like me in 7 words. What would you say in 7 words about me? This is a glossary where you've got things where we're grabbing things that people are very topical for that year and what it means for those students. Here's another example for slang that's really popular for the year. And then you can also do graphs. And you can take a graph like this, or you could really challenge yourself to really make it look different. He said, she said, where you're really comparing things, guys versus girls. You can do this again, like sophomores versus juniors, or whatever you want to do. This is a how-to. So what do you do to stay style savvy? And so it kind of like talks about what she does when she's going shopping. And then we've got some more. So we'll continue in the next video.